To the left, we have the Samsung S90D. To the right, we have the Hisense U8QG. This is a hard comparison. You have one instance where the Samsung to the left is giving you a ton of color, a ton of detail. I mean, it's very obvious which one pulls ahead in this example. But then looking over to the image to the right, it's the brighter image. It has better cyan reproduction. You could tell by the shirt, but it's lacking the yellow and the overall sharpness. Okay. But then you get to an example like this. And then they kind of trade a bit. There's better red to the left, but there's better clarity over here by a lot. You see that highlight naturally. And it's generally a very beautiful looking image. Okay, so then you go to the next image. And then this becomes way better in every aspect of the word, to the point where it literally looks photorealistic and crystal clear like an OLED. And this is looking like crap because the blacks are raised. They're showing too much of the background. And I'll raise my camera sensitivity light, also called ISO, so we can just raise it up and show you what I'm talking about. And look at that. The proof is in the pudding right there. I'll lower it down so it's not clipping as much. And you can see the inky deep black levels on this ADS panel, which is basically IPS, but this is a little bit more lifted, so it's not as black as that. That is darker than that. Now, people would tell you this is impossible because OLED has infinite contrast, and anywhere there's black, it just shuts off and creates perfect dark, and then this should never happen, but that's not true because you're clearly seeing it happen. And this is where it gets fucking weird for me because I'm like, man, this is, how do you pass a review or a rating on something like this? Because they're doing different things. I love what the S90D is doing right here in this example. I think it's giving the perfect picture right now. The S90D has clarity, black levels, everything, darker black levels than right here. So then they trade again. So now this has inkier blacks. But a second ago it didn't. And then you look at this, and then this is giving you more of a greenish kind of hue. And this is giving you more of a baby blue kind of hue. But as far as detail and clarity, I mean, I see every ripple in the guy's arm right here versus that's a little bit more natural. So, I mean, you'll find yourself going back and forth a few times before you really get to the point of saying, I mean, Hisense did their damn thing this year for a so-called budget TV. I got to give them that because colors look great. And while it's not OLED, it's pretty freaking close. And again, this is when you have it just kind of rocking nearly the maximum brightness. Again, if you go maximum brightness, everything will just be blown out and very clipped. But it's like, see, like, again, I could go into like even the clarity options and I could just turn on motion clearness. And that sharpens things up a bit more than already. And now it looks way clearer than what I have on my Samsung. So it's like, you really have these weird moments. Like, again, now the blacks on the Samsung lifted, not black at all. The black on the Hisense, inky. And I'll raise my ISO, camera sensitivity to light, to show you that. Look at that. I don't know what to make of it. This becomes such a hard comparison when you're seeing stuff like this, you know? You hear people say that Samsung has lifted black, and until you really put it in the lab against something that actually has something shutting off and actually doing the local dimming job, you're not really going to see to the extent that you should just how lifted these black levels on Samsung can be. And again, for anybody wondering, the S90D is my champion of 2024, okay? I have no reason to lie about what I'm seeing here. There is no incentive. There's nothing. I'm not bought and paid off by anybody. And I think that's one of your benefits. You get to see this in real time. The results don't lie. That's inky. Now, there is a little bit of light trail around mystery box right there. And, you know, if you're really squinting, you might be able to see a tiny little bit of glow right here. But really, come on. Who's really looking at all that? I don't know. It depends on you as a person. I mean, would you rather have that where it's mostly black, or would you rather have the whole damn thing lifted? I don't know. It's a question per person. And now we're getting into like individualized statements of what I prefer versus what you prefer. But what's not an individualized statement is look at the picture clarity and quality on the Hisense. Tit for tat, it's every bit as good, more or less, than what we have on the Samsung. I mean, the brightness, the clarity, I mean, it's all beautiful. I love the color blue on the Hisense. I think it's gorgeous, but I do believe that Samsung's doing the more accurate representation of skin tones and of the color purple that's supposed to be mixed in versus looking a little bit towards like a more greenish cyan color. I mean, when you look at this example, though, you're clearly seeing where that extra cyan push does look better, though. Because if you ask me which one looks like it would have been the way they intended to shoot it, Hisense, for sure. Because the cyan reproduction mixed in with the blues just looks amazing with the inky deep blacks on the background and everything. And I look at the Hisense, or rather the Samsung to the left, and it's just showing a bit much. Again, look, this is, I'm trying my best to get it to where you can see it. I don't know where that will be on YouTube, but right about there. It looks incredible, though. I mean, I can't lie. What I'm seeing is just spectacular. You get to images like this. This clearly is a win for Samsung. Looks way better than that. Again, it might be because this is a bright image, so I'll lower back down. It just looks better, but that doesn't mean the separation on the Hisense is bad because they have more three-dimensionality. The color is better here, but the three-dimensionality is better here. So you get to this weird position where you're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you're trying to find like a definitive winner, and it depends on preference. I will say Samsung's approach of lifting blacks, like here, actually isn't a bad thing, because if we open up our black levels and we just show you a little bit more, you can kind of see what Hisense is doing, okay? They have a glow, again, don't know how well you'll see it, around the outline here. A bit of a glow, okay? I could clearly see a glow. It's like she's got, you know, a halo around her, like she's a little saint or something. But the rest of the image is inky deep black, where that is lifted, clearly lifted black levels. Very clearly. And that's the part where it gets irritating, because you're going to go back and forth a ton of times with this. A ton of times. And there, I mean, look, for some people, there is no right or wrong answer. But then there are examples like this where the Hisense is looking a bit more washed by comparison to the Samsung, that has the better representation of the brick color. I mean, then you look at this example, and then it's starting to play out more like a story, right? Where you're starting to see one do a little bit better than the other. And then it just kind of goes back and forth like that for a little bit. Now, you can change picture presets and try to get something a little bit different, like my energy saving picture preset, see if maybe that doesn't change things a bit. And it does. You get more vibrancy, you know, you get more saturation per se. It looks green on camera. I don't know if that's like the coating they put on it, by the way. But it does make things look green on camera, but in real life it's not green at all, so I don't know why it does that. So do keep that in mind. But, I mean, you're looking at contrast differences. I mean, they both give impact. They definitely both give impact. And that's the thing. Now, if you ask me which one I would prefer, I mean, I'm kind of torn. Because I look at it, on the one hand, I want to just say I prefer the Samsung case closed, but then I look over at the Hisense and it's doing really beautiful things for highlights, like in the trees and in the foliage and all that. Again, don't know what YouTube's going to show, what final detail is going to be preserved. But I mean, like, in a lot of examples like now, they look very identical. I like the foliage and the shadow detail on the Samsung bar none. That's beautiful, gorgeous, fantastic. But I just love the light that is being preserved through here and shining through the cloak or the shawl or whatever it is. And I'm just showing you this, hoping you could see some of it, but you probably can't. I don't know. I do know that they both look great. But, I mean, you have to pick a winner at the end of the day. There's more accuracy on the S90D by far. That is an actual sky blue. That is more of like a turquoise type of color. You know what I mean? And yeah, there are some people that will like the turquoise, but I'm rocking with the sky blue. I like a sky blue. I think that's just way too unrealistic. And it's not that you can't fix this now. But if you fix this, it throws all of your other cyans off. So there's this weird balancing problem with Hisense I've noticed, where you have to pick and choose. I mean, some examples it'll absolutely slaughter it and knock it out of the park, but other examples not so much. And I've noticed you never really quite get that true sky blue color on the Hisense like you do on the Samsung to the left. And then I love the warmth that the Samsung has on the screen. This is a perfect example. I'll open up my camera ISO so you can see it. I mean, there's just a warmth to the mountains that look realistic. The Hisense just doesn't have that. Everything is just overly blue, and it is undefeatable blue. There is literally nothing you can do from a calibration perspective to fix that. And that's where it starts to bug me a bit, because it's like, for every good thing they do, they kind of take something away. I love the highlight detail in this scene. I'll lower down my camera ISO so you can see it. Don't know how well you'll see it. I think it looks really beautiful. I really do. The highlight on the cheek, everything. I'll lower it down. Maybe that's where you can see it. It looks fantastic. It really does. The whole image looks great, but it's a little too contrasty comparatively to what we have over here. Now, you can neuter the contrast by turning off the HDR feature, but if you turn off the HDR feature, you're going to be faced with a load less detail, and I'll show you what that looks like. So with it off, you can notice there's a lot of detail that just kind of goes missing. You do lose a bit in the way of contrast. I won't lie about that, and that's something that you're just going to have to live with. Colors generally tend to fall a little bit on the flatter side of things, but you do get your shadow detail back in spades to the point where it's kind of lifting a bit in some areas. I don't really know which one of these you will prefer, but I can tell you if you want a more contrasty look, the simple and easiest way to get that back is to just lower your black levels, which I'll show you now. So by lowering our black levels, we've been able to pull out a little extra detail. Again, it depends on how much of it that you want, but it is possible. And when you look at what's left over, it's still a very good image. There's tons of shadow detail, there's good color, but it's just a bit too blue. And that's been my biggest gripe with the Hisense, to be very honest with you. It's a bit too blue. The image to the left on the Samsung, stellar. Very rich color, very believable, very lifelike. And I haven't even really tried to do anything to augment the picture at all. Where the Hisense, this whole time, we've been trying to get it a little bit better, a little bit more accurate, so on and so forth, and it does fall behind the S90D. So while there are moments where the S90D can be weak, but again, you have to look at the full picture, and the full picture tells a story. I mean, look at this image, for example. Don't know what YouTube's going to show you at all. What I see is very clear. It's a slam dunk win for the Samsung because it has color, it has contrast, it has warm tones, it has sharpness, foreground and background detail, accuracy of lighting, everything from the little highlights. I mean, everything. I'll lower my ISO. Maybe it's too bright. I don't actually know what you're going to see. I don't even know where to put it. So it's a one-to-one, you know what I mean? But like I could tell you, there's just a lot of the image quality that the Samsung is just giving you that Hisense isn't there yet. And again, it really stems back to my original comment. They're just too damn blue this year. I mean, it's very, very blue. It's a lot like a WOLED in the presentation of blue. And again, if you want that extra contrast to get on par with, you know, Quantum.OLED, you're going to have to sacrifice some detail, and that is not something a lot of people are going to want to do. And I know that for a fact. So you're in this weird little purgatory with Hisense where they have great detail, but you got to use this HDR feature to get it. And if you use that HDR feature, you may or may not lose some detail. And you still will never be quite as warm and rich and natural as you are on the Samsung. And again, that's something that a lot of people like myself, the real like image connoisseurs, are going to pick up on instantaneously. They're going to be like, wait a minute, I don't have the depth, I don't have the color, I'm losing out comparatively in a lot of ways. It's comparable in some ways with clarity and depth, but you have to use that HDR feature. Now, when you use that HDR feature, it does look pretty fantastic. And again, this is what it looks like without it, so I'll show you what it looks like with it by just going over to my other picture preset where I have it already toggled. And we'll go back to standard where we have that. But I mean, look at the contrast. The contrast is very strong, and there's a lot of detail that does tend to get missed in that whole thing. So look, just give you an example of this image, okay? So this is what it looks like with that contrast enhancer on. It's not a contrast enhancer, it's the HDR enhancer, but I'm so used to saying contrast enhancer, so just bear with me with that. So many features, so little time with these TVs, seriously. Okay, so this is the standard mode, but if you go back to where I had it within the energy saving mode, you get your shadow detail back. So it's like, it really does depend on what you're watching when you use that feature. And if you don't use it, you say, screw it, I'm going to turn it off. I mean, you're not going to be able to compete. Like, you're just not. And again, I'll show you in real time. We'll go back to my settings that I've made for the standard mode. And you see that contrast tighten up to like literally OLED level. But if you turn it off, you get back to, you know, reality here. Now, I feel like there is something to be said about you being able to maybe darken the shadows a bit more to pull out some extra detail, but you're already kind of missing a little bit more of the detail in the corner here, right here, comparatively to what you have over here. And we'll raise the camera sensitivity to light just so you can see that. So you can clearly see there's just this weird little dark corner right here, where over here you have all that detail. And this is where the QD OLED is going to shine through and be a better purchase for you, is in that raw detail. And this is an important thing to note if you're a gamer, because gamers love details. Well, the S90D has it in spades. And I mean in spades. It's just a phenomenal experience. Now again, I'll go back. I'll put it back in with the HDR enhancer, and you can kind of see what that looks like. It's closer than it would have been without it, for sure. But then you got to do some work and kind of raise up your shadow details maybe a little bit. You have some darker areas and everything, but I mean, this is really going to boil down to ultra preferential. And I'm not even joking. I wish I was joking, but based off of which one you pick is going to be what kind of picture you like. Me personally, the image to the left all day, every day. Image to the right is just not getting it done. So I'm going to leave it for the rest of the comparison in my energy savings mode and just kind of call that what it is. I find myself between a rock and a hard place when I talk about these two TVs, because the Hisense is just very blue. Very, 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 very blue. And there ain't no two ways about that. It's hurting in a lot of scenes, not all of them. Like now, don't know what YouTube's going to show you, but honestly, the image to the right looks better right now. So sometimes the color blue can be a benefit, just not at all. And again, like the Iguana right now looks absolutely immaculate on the Samsung to the left. All the color in the world I could hope for, where I do tend to want a little bit more on the Hisense, where the Hisense isn't really giving me the same amount of color. I do see that color coming through more on the Samsung. Very blue, the greens around the lips. I mean, the corner of the mouth, you can clearly see that is very sharp, very pure, very clean. I mean, but the Hisense isn't far off. And then we get into the conversation of price to value ratio. So for how much money I spend, am I getting an appropriate picture level back? I would say yes, given that I know for a fact, come Black Friday, this TV is going to be what, $899? Okay, $899, and you're getting pretty much the same level of a Samsung S90D, albeit the S90D is better. I mean, I would say the winner of this comparison would have to be the S90D. It edges it out clearly. Examples like this, the frog, very green, very concisely beautiful. The Hisense just not getting it done comparatively to the amount of color purity, color density. Again, how much color it holds in a single portion of the image. Like, look at the mouth, look at the feet. The density of that color is just so vibrant and so rich, you can't deny it. Again, you look at the lizard here, more of the same. It's like a 3D image versus a 2D image. And again, you can use Hisense's HDR enhancer feature in my standard settings. But even when you do that, it's not going to get the color back. And I don't think a lot of people are kind of paying attention to this. There's a big dynamic of like, you can get contrast, but there's always something you're going to have to trade. It'll get the contrast, and now it looks like a QD OLED, but then like in some instances, you'll swap back and then you lose color. Like the frog now to the left. Looks immaculate, looks amazing, looks fantastic. And these are the kind of sacrifices you're going to have to make. So if I were personally to make the decision, am I going to get a QD OLED or am I going to get a Hisense? I would get the S90D over the Hisense U8QG because the color purity is just there. Look at this. It's definitely there. The Hisense is beautiful, but I mean, there are a lot of sacrifices you've got to make. There's a lot of finagling you've got to do. You got to be good with adjusting picture quality. And I mean, it's just a lot harder to get the same level of quality out of the image, I would say, than something like the Samsung would be able to give you. So for that, I would call our winner at the Samsung S90D. I don't think anybody was surprised by that. If you are, well, there you go. That being said, though, I'd love to know what you guys think of this comparison in the comments down below. But again, in examples like this, the Hisense is just too blue. Now, again, just to show you, you can turn that off. You can go into your settings. You can go back into energy saving. But then you're kind of like stuck between a rock and a hard place because it's still too blue. You just lack the contrast behind it. And then here you are lacking contrast. So either way you look at it, you're going to lack contrast. It's not going to look as good. And there are no two ways about that. So again, the winner has to be the S90D. But the Hisense does take a notable second place. So for those who are on the fence, my recommendation would still be the S90D. Despite the lifted blacks in some areas, it pulls through where image quality counts most. But that being said, I want to thank you guys for watching the #1 brand in honesty. And let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. And until the next video, I'll see you guys later.